Eggs have always felt like the safe choice. Simple, familiar, something you don't have to question. For many people, eggs quietly become the default breakfast because they're seen as healthy and easy on the body. But here's the part most people never hear. It's not the egg that changes, it's the way the body handles it after 60. Digestion slows, fat processing shifts, inflammation becomes easier to trigger, and habits that once felt harmless stop working the same way. That's why so many older adults eat the same eggs, prepared the same way, and still feel heavier afterward. Energy drops sooner. The stomach feels off. Cholesterol numbers start to confuse even doctors, and it all gets brushed off as just aging. Doctors aren't warning seniors to avoid eggs. They're warning them about how eggs are prepared, how often they're eaten, and one hidden habit almost everyone ignores. These mistakes don't cause problems overnight. They build quietly until the body starts pushing back. Today, we're breaking down 6 common egg mistakes. We'll start with the ones that seem harmless and end with the one most people never question. That last one looks completely normal, but it may be the reason eggs stop feeling as safe as they once did. Mistake number 6. Overcooking eggs until they're hard to digest. Most people believe overcooking eggs is the safest option. Longer boiling, firmer whites, fully set yolks with no softness left. It feels clean. It feels cautious. It feels responsible. But this is often where the body starts pushing back. Overcooked eggs don't just look firmer. Their proteins tighten and compact. They become denser and harder to break down. For a digestive system that's already slowing down, that difference matters more than most people realize. As the body changes after 60, stomach acid tends to run lower, and enzyme release slows. The gut still functions, but it doesn't tolerate unnecessary strain the way it once did. When eggs are cooked until rubbery or chalky, digestion has to work overtime. That's when heaviness appears. Pressure builds. Food feels like it lingers instead of moving through. Research on protein digestion helps explain why this happens. When proteins are exposed to excessive heat, their structure becomes more compact and less accessible to digestive enzymes. That change may not stand out earlier in life, but it becomes far more relevant as digestion naturally weakens. This is why so many older adults notice the same pattern. Breakfast feels fine going down, but fullness arrives too fast. Discomfort hangs around longer. Energy dips sooner than expected. The egg gets blamed. It feels too heavy now. In reality, heat changed how the egg behaves inside the body. There's also a quiet nutrient trade-off. Overcooking damages some of the delicate compounds that make eggs easier to absorb. So digestion demands more effort, while absorption delivers less return. One meal won't cause harm, but repeated day after day, it adds friction to a system that already has less margin. This mistake stays common because it feels harmless. It rarely causes sharp pain or obvious symptoms. Doctors usually don't mention it unless digestion is already struggling. Instead, it shows up as a subtle shift. Meals stop feeling as comfortable as they once did. The adjustment doesn't require extremes. Gentle heat. Shorter cooking times. Eggs that are set but not stiff. Whites cooked through, yolks still tender. When digestion faces less resistance, the response is often immediate. Less heaviness, less fatigue, a lighter start to the day. And once digestion is no longer quietly overloaded, another habit begins to matter even more in how eggs affect the body. Mistake number 5. Eating eggs without enough fiber. Eggs are filling. That's exactly why so many seniors build meals around them. 2 eggs for breakfast, sometimes 3. Nothing else on the plate. It feels efficient. Protein is covered. Hunger stays away. On the surface, it looks like the right choice. The issue isn't the eggs. It's what's missing. eggs contain no fiber at all. And after 60, that absence matters. Fiber becomes one of the main tools the body relies on to move food through the gut, calm background inflammation, and keep digestion predictable. When eggs are eaten alone, digestion tends to slow. Food lingers longer in the stomach and intestines. The gut microbiome loses the material it needs to stay balanced. Over time, this leads to bloating, irregular bowel habits, and a low-grade inflammatory state that often gets mistaken for normal aging. That's why some older adults say, "Eggs feel heavier now." It's not that eggs suddenly became a problem. It's that there's nothing helping carry them through the system. Without that support, even high-quality food can feel stuck. Not painful, just uncomfortable enough to drain energy and dull appetite later in the day. The long-term effect matters as well. Consistently low fiber intake is linked to higher inflammation, poorer blood sugar control, and slower cholesterol clearance. None of this shows up right away. It builds quietly, meal after meal, while everything still looks healthy on paper. The fix isn't cutting eggs out or adding supplements. It's pairing eggs with plant foods every time. Vegetables, greens, a small portion of beans, whole grains if they work for you, even a side of fruit. Something that feeds the gut and keeps movement steady. When that support is present, eggs feel lighter again. Digestion moves more smoothly. Energy steadies instead of crashing. And the body stops resisting a meal that was never meant to be eaten alone. But what many seniors pair eggs with next can quietly undo all of that progress, even when plant foods are on the plate. Mistake number 4. Pairing eggs with processed meats. Eggs on their own are rarely the issue. Most people tolerate them well. The real trouble begins with what they're most often served alongside, especially in a classic American breakfast. Bacon, sausage, ham. These foods feel familiar and comforting. For decades, eggs and processed meats have shared the same plate, so the combination almost never gets questioned. But as the body changes after 60, this pairing places far more stress on the system than it once did. Processed meats carry a heavy inflammatory load, high sodium, damaged fats from processing and reheating, and chemical additives all demand extra work from the liver and blood vessels. When combined with eggs, the meal becomes harder to manage. Inflammation rises, blood pressure strain increases, and cholesterol particles are more likely to shift in unhealthy directions over time. This rarely shows up as pain. Instead, it appears as small changes that are easy to ignore. Feeling sluggish after breakfast, taking longer to feel normal again. Blood work slowly drifting the wrong way even though portions haven't changed. Many seniors say, "I don't eat much, but I still don't feel right." This combination is often part of the reason. The mistake isn't eggs, it's the compound effect. Eggs paired with processed meats turn a simple meal into a repeated inflammatory burden. And because the habit feels routine, it often continues for years without adjustment. There's also a false sense of balance. People assume protein cancels out the damage. It doesn't. Protein can't offset the repeated stress caused by heavily processed fats and additives, especially when recovery and repair are no longer as efficient as they once were. Separating eggs from processed meats changes how the entire meal feels. Digestion becomes lighter. Energy steadies. The body spends less effort managing inflammation and more effort supporting circulation and strength. Eggs simply work better when they aren't forced to share the plate with foods that push the body in the opposite direction. And even when eggs are eaten alone, another quiet assumption can still create problems over time. Mistake number 3. Not paying attention to egg yolks. Egg yolks are nutrient-dense. That part is true. They contain vitamins, healthy fats, and compounds the body needs. That's why "don't fear the yolk" became such a popular message. and many people took it to mean unlimited, unrestricted, and always safe. This is where the mistake begins. Not everyone processes egg yolks the same way later in life. Some bodies handle the cholesterol and fat load smoothly. Others don't. And the challenge is that you usually don't feel the difference right away. For many seniors, repeated yolk intake gradually shifts LDL cholesterol upward. Not dramatically. Not in a way that triggers alarm. Blood markers move little by little. Arteries become more sensitive to inflammation. And because there's no immediate discomfort, the habit feels harmless. This is why two people can eat the same breakfast and see very different outcomes. One feels fine. The other starts wondering why their numbers no longer make sense. They didn't eat more. They didn't change their routine. What changed was how the body responded to repeated exposure over time. The mistake isn't the yolk itself. It's assuming your body reacts the same way it did decades ago, or the same way someone else's body does now. After 60, personalization matters more than blanket food rules. What works well for one person may quietly strain another. Awareness matters here. Watching how you feel after meals. Paying attention to cholesterol trends over time. Noticing subtle sluggishness or heaviness that wasn't there before. These aren't failures. They're signals the body uses to ask for adjustment, not restriction. For many people, balance is enough. Mixing whole eggs with egg whites. Rotating protein sources. Spacing yolk intake across the week instead of stacking it daily. The goal isn't fear, it's feedback. And when fat processing or bile flow is already under strain, ignoring that feedback can quietly magnify the next mistake. Mistake number 2, ignoring liver and gallbladder signals. Many people hear that eggs are healthy and assume that means they're healthy in every situation. So they keep eating them the same way, even when the body has already started sending warning signs. As the body changes after 60, the liver and gallbladder don't always work with the same efficiency they once did. Bile flow can slow. Fat processing becomes less reliable. And eggs, especially the yolk, depend on that system to be handled smoothly. When bile support is weak, even a normal serving of eggs can begin to feel heavy. This is where confusion sets in. Eggs are eaten, and shortly after, there's nausea. A sense of pressure under the ribs, bloating that lingers, or a dull discomfort that hangs around longer than it should. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's strong enough to affect the rest of the morning. But because eggs are considered healthy, these signals are easy to dismiss. The mistake isn't eating eggs. It's eating them as if the liver and gallbladder are still operating at full capacity. When bile flow is sluggish, fats don't move efficiently. They sit longer. Digestion slows. Inflammation quietly increases. Over time, that repeated strain adds up. Many seniors with a history of fatty liver, gallbladder issues, or chronically sluggish digestion assume their body is failing them. It isn't. The body is asking for adjustments. Smaller portions, gentler cooking, better timing. Sometimes pairing eggs with lighter foods instead of dense ones changes everything. When eggs are adjusted to match the body's current capacity, symptoms often ease quickly. Meals feel lighter. Discomfort fades. Confidence around food returns. And that confidence matters, because fear around eating leads to restriction, and restriction leads to weakness. But even when portions are adjusted and digestion is respected, one habit can still override all of that progress. It doesn't look extreme. It doesn't feel risky. In fact, it's the most common way eggs are prepared. This single habit creates more inflammation than any other mistake on this list. It can cancel out better timing. It can undo gentler cooking. And it's the reason eggs can feel supportive one day and draining the next, even when everything else seems right. That's why the final mistake matters more than all the others combined. Mistake number 1, Frying eggs in refined vegetable oils. This mistake isn't really about eggs, it's about what most people cook them in, without ever thinking twice. Refined vegetable oils feel harmless because they're everywhere. Soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil. They're marketed as light, heart-friendly, and modern. So frying eggs in them feels like the responsible choice, especially for people trying to eat clean and make better decisions later in life. But here's what actually happens. These oils are highly processed and unstable under heat. When they hit a hot pan, they oxidize. Their fat structure breaks down and becomes inflammatory. And when eggs are cooked in those oils, they absorb that damage. The egg becomes the delivery system. This explains a pattern many people recognize. Eggs look healthy on the plate, but something feels off afterward. Heaviness in the stomach. Energy dropping sooner than expected. Joints feeling stiffer later in the day. Cholesterol numbers drifting the wrong way despite careful eating. The egg gets blamed. Age gets blamed. The oil almost never does. As the body changes after 60, clearing oxidized fats becomes slower and more demanding. The liver works harder. Blood vessels become more sensitive. Inflammation doesn't settle as easily as it once did. So a habit that once seemed neutral starts creating real strain, not in a single meal, but through daily repetition. What makes this mistake especially harmful is how normal it looks. There's no warning label, no bad taste, no immediate symptom that tells you to stop. Just quiet friction building inside the system, breakfast after breakfast. That's why eggs can feel supportive one week and draining the next. Nothing about the egg changed. The oil did its damage underneath, and the body paid the price. The adjustment isn't complicated. It's awareness. Choosing fats that remain stable under heat. Lowering cooking temperatures. Understanding that small daily habits matter more now than occasional indulgences ever did. When this one change is made, many people notice it quickly. Digestion feels lighter. Energy steadies. That lingering sense that food is working against you begins to fade. Not because you gave something up, but because you removed what never belonged there in the first place. And that's the real takeaway from this entire video. Eggs didn't betray you. Old habits did. Eggs were never the enemy. And aging wasn't the problem either. The body changed, but the habits didn't. Over time, that gap is what creates confusion and discomfort around food that once felt safe. If eggs have started feeling heavier or less reliable, that's not failure. That's feedback. This video wasn't about fear or restriction. It was about clarity. Understanding which small habits no longer work and which adjustments actually bring relief. You don't need extreme rules. You don't need to give eggs up. You need awareness. How you cook them. What you cook them with. And how often you repeat the same habits. Small changes here can mean lighter digestion and steadier energy. Before you go, leave a comment and share one egg habit you recognized yourself doing while watching. Writing it down is often the first step toward changing it. And if you care about understanding food and health in a way that actually fits life after 60, subscribe to the channel. New videos focus on practical habits that bring clarity, not confusion.